Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Playbook here on the Boise Beat. As always, I got my pops here with me and another recurring special guest, my guy Earn Balls. I mean, we just closed up with the NBA Finals. Was a rather quick series, only 5 games. A lot of people complaining about wasn't such a great series. Celtics had an easy road. Still a lot of complaints at the moment, but we finally have a champion after what felt like a long playoff discussion. We haven't been able to have an episode in a while, but Ernie, tell me about this Celtics team. You said you'd be on if they win it.
Uh, Here I am. Hey, man of my word, what can I say? First off, congratulations, Banner 18, most winningest
Yes, sir.
franchise in the league. I
Hmm.
know that one feels good over your guys' long rivalry with the Lakers.
Heck yeah.
Hey, but I'll be the first to say, man, I think you guys deserved it. You guys have been the best team in the league for the majority of the season, and in the playoffs, you guys just seem to roll through whatever's was in front of your guys' way. So, congrats.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Pops, the Celtics, they just announced that they had a flight to Miami scheduled before the game started. They said they had the flight scheduled to be ready to go the next day at noon to Miami to celebrate. After a disappointing blowout loss in game 4, what made you so confident they were going to win game 5?
They were at home, and a lot of people are asking, did they intentionally lose game 4 to win game 5 at home? I don't think they did because
No.
too much pride, especially the way they lost it. Once they got so far behind, then they just gave up and took their starters out. They're ready, and they just been good at home this playoffs, especially against the Wolves. I'd like to say, you know, matchups make the series, you know, and the Wolves didn't match up with the Mavericks, but we more than matched up with them. And that's what
Mhm.
made it so easy. It wasn't easy, but four games to one, that's pretty dominant.
Yeah, and I mean, all of us saw it prior to the matchup with the Wolves that the Wolves matched up with them
Yeah,
better than just about anybody at that point. And it just goes to show you just never know until you're in that series
yeah. Just like the
and how
Wolves,
things can go.
yeah, just like the Wolves match up with Denver. Denver didn't match
Yeah.
up well with them. So it's a game of matchups, and we have the wings that can handle Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the guards, all defensive guards. So it wasn't that hard, really. It's a couple of close games, but
Yeah.
only
And
only one time did they get over 100 points. Only one game they get over 100 points. That's a
mhm.
dominant defense.
Yeah, the defense showed up. That's what was huge. Because I mean, going in that series, I believe the Mavs were the number one rated defense from like the end part of the year, like the
March.
last month of the year, and then into the playoffs. And the Celtics really showed why they had the right matchups. They had the defensive players to match up with them well. And another big surprise in in my eyes was the fact that Jason Tatum led the team in every single category, and Jalen Brown still got Finals MVP. I think it had a lot to do with him guarding Doncic, but Earn Balls, what do you think of that? Do you think that was deserved?
I think so. I think that's one of those cases where yes, Tatum led in all those categories, but I think with those stats, sometimes if you were to watch the game, the impact Jalen Brown had on your guys's the whole journey to the ship, really. I mean, I think
Hmm.
it goes beyond what just numbers say. For example, how you said it, Tatum led in almost every category and he still won Finals MVP, which I do think he deserved. Again, accredited to his defense, like you said,
Mhm.
but just the whole series,
Hmm.
man, he was just so reliable. It was an incredible. It was incredible to see, especially coming off when Jason Tatum got hurt in that year with going against the Heat in Game
Miami
7, and
Heat.
then
Yeah.
Hmm.
all the pressure was on JB, and he failed, and he said he would take it upon himself to improve. And man, what a way to show out, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he said he was so embarrassed about that
Hmm.
that he had to get better. He knew he had to get better on that. And to his credit, he did. He worked hard. Both him and Tatum worked really hard in the off season to work on the part of their games that weren't very good. And you could see this year, like Tatum had a lot more assists this year. Even Brown was passing the ball really good.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and his defense, he said at the beginning of the year that his defense was going to be, he wanted to win defensive, one of the all NBA defensive teams, and he didn't do that. But that just made him meaner, made him want it more and
Yeah.
more hungry because people doubted him. He didn't even make an all NBA team either. And you could see he's
Yeah.
like, okay, let me show you guys why you guys messed up. And he
Yeah.
did.
I don't think he'll be left off any of those ballots now because a lot of it has to
I
do
don't
with
think so.
popularity contest and how
Mhm.
you do in the playoffs in prior years really kind of decides, I think, for the upcoming years. So
Yeah.
don't think he'll be left off anymore as long as he has a healthy season. But I just think it's been such an interesting like shift of narratives as the playoffs have gone on because I mean you saw from the end of last year, Earnball's like the narrative around Jalen Brown, you had all the memes all season that he couldn't guard with his left hand. He's the
Hmm.
most overpaid player ever, they said. And then now all of a sudden it's he's the best player on the team and they're bringing Jason Tatum down. It's like
Yeah.
it's
That's
so
it.
funny the way the media works. It's like one has to be greater than the other when it's like I've always looked at it as like these two are both great. Like give them both their credit. I always wanted Jalen Brown to get his due because he deserved
Yeah.
it for years. But now all of a sudden like people are bringing down Tatum for it, and you see Brown get the Finals MVP and the camera right away goes to Tatum. Like they
Hmm.
want a reaction from him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And and like, what do you think about this duo for years to come? Earn balls. Like, where do you see this going?
Um, so for right now, at the time being, these guys, the way they're playing basketball is they are the perfect players for this system to work. Like how you said, they're
Hmm.
dominant wings who can do everything on the court. So you surround them with shooters, and geez, I don't know if you guys can keep. I don't even think, and this is kind of going against with what I was saying because I do think this playoff run really introduced the world like, wow, these guys, maybe they are better than what everybody perceived them to be. And I think
Hmm.
right now a big narrative is that they were able to do it with a bunch of good talent. I don't think that they
Hmm.
really need all that talent per se. They need their players to do their job. For example, right now you guys have them surrounded with a bunch of 3 and D guys. I don't think you need
Yeah.
the big names like Drew Holiday, Derek White, even Porzingis. Those are one of the better 3 and D guys in the league. I don't think that's required anymore. I think they can do more with less now, and I think they did show that. I just
Hmm.
think for this season that was kind of overkill. I mean, they killed everybody, and shout out to them. I mean, they played how they were supposed to play. So I
Yeah.
don't think I do think it's unfair how Tatum is looked, but he did take a sacrifice, and people are gonna pick at that as if that's him taking a
Hmm.
step back, which he kind of I wouldn't say he even took a step back because he still is Boston's main guy. In my eyes, he still takes the shots, but
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just think JB he stepped up, and I don't think
Hmm.
like how you said I don't think anybody should take a shot for somebody stepping up. That's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what it was, why they were so hard on Tatum, is he shot so poorly. You know,
Hmm.
he's shot under
Hmm.
39% from the field and not even 30% on threes. So that's what they're bringing up, you know. But we won anyway. And it was funny because after the Mavs beat the Wolves, the T Wolves, everybody's like, oh, yeah, this team is for real. And so many experts picked the Mavs to beat the Celtics. Can you believe it? They
Hmm.
barely won 50 games. I know they got hot late and they beat some good teams, but we won 64. Celtics won 64 games and they were dominant all year. And all of a sudden, all these so-called experts, especially on ESPN, like Stephen A. Smith, You even had Tim Legler and Windhorst. They all picked the Mavs in like
Yeah.
6. Some of them went 7.
Udonis
But,
Haslam.
oh yeah, of course
Yeah,
Adonis Haslam. He's
of
from
course.
the Heat.
Yeah.
Of course he's gonna.
And Perkins.
And
And
Perkins, he
Perkins
take
the whole
Dallas
time.
too.
And I believe so at the start of the series, yeah. And I think it was just so funny to see because like everybody just kept changing their minds. It's like because the Celtics they didn't feel they were being tested enough. So first it was the Nuggets, and which I think no one knows, and I think everyone's like in the back of everyone's mind though is if the Nuggets were to get there, what kind of series would this have been? Because they do match up well with the Celtics, and so it went
Yeah,
from Nuggets being the favorite to then the T Wolves beat them, and the T Wolves became the favorite for a second, and then the Mavs became the favorite when they upset the T Wolves.
yeah,
And it's like it was so funny. No one gave the Celtics a shot, even though they had played the best all year. And there were games this year where I'd like because I've been the last few years I've been waiting for them to play Celtics brand of basketball, which is play defense and move the ball. And there were games this year where I'd be watching and I'd have a tear coming down my eyes because I was like,
Mhm.
this team looks like they play Celtics basketball. You know what I mean? Like this feels like the year. I'm like, if they don't do it this year, then I don't know when because it felt like it. Just the way they were moving the ball, the way they played defense, the way they wanted it. And even when they got up 3-0, I was still like, it's not over yet because all the things that have happened in the past,
yeah,
injuries, you just never know. And so it just felt like the year. And sure, we didn't get as exciting like close series, but I mean, it did. Looking back, it does kind of feel like the team everyone expected did do it, and they're rooting against them. I get it. No one likes the Celtics, and Luca is the best player on that court.
yeah.
And I think that's the reason a lot of people rooted for them. They thought the best guy was going to beat the best team, and it doesn't always work like that in the NBA playoffs. At what point in the season, Pops, did you think the Celtics were the real deal?
Oh, all the way through, pretty much. They had a stacked team. Even when Porzingis went down in the playoffs, I thought, oh man, it's going to be a little tougher now. But we got so used to playing without him during the season that wasn't
Hmm.
that big a deal. But then when he came in the finals, we were down or we were close game. He comes in, all of a sudden we got a 17-point lead. Just the time he was in there, you're like, all right, good to have him back.
Hmm.
And then he gets hurt in the second game, and everybody's like, oh, now what you gonna do? But
Yeah.
we've been playing without him all year, a lot of games all through the playoffs. I mean, we only lost 2 games. In fact, we only lost 1 game without him the whole playoffs.
Hmm.
And that because he's part of that Miami loss. So Cleveland lost, he wasn't there. So we only lost that 1 game. And then of course game 4. So I guess it makes it 2. But
Yeah, and he was available. Didn't play, but I mean, this last game, they put him in. They had a pretty big lead, and it was scary because right when they put him in, they were attacking him and they were
oh
getting
yeah.
points. It kind
Mhm.
of made you wonder if, like, trying to get him in the rotation to make him feel a part of this run, I was worried for a bit. It was going to hurt them more than
Yeah.
anything. And I think they just needed a second to catch their bearings. You could tell he didn't really trust his body,
Yeah.
fully. And so he was like hesitating out there. But, you know, while we started off this episode talking NBA champion Celtics, let's dive into way too early predictions for leading up to next year. Earn balls, who do you think is the best team set up to knock them off next year?
Um, in all honesty, I know that you guys are bringing back the whole squad, so I
Yeah.
don't think anybody knocks you guys off next year. I think the best bet is gonna have to be either the Thunder if they continue to develop, uh,
Hmm.
Yeah.
or it's gonna be the Timberwolves if Anthony Edwards continues to develop as well, or it's going to be
Hmm.
Denver just because of Joker's greatness. I think it has to be somebody in the West. I just don't think there's enough firepower in the East to really contest you guys yet, unless it's
You know,
another
Hmm.
miracle Heat season,
yeah.
something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Or,
going to have to be somebody in the West.
or somebody on the Celtics gets hurt, major like Tatum or Brown gets hurt for the year or something, or in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But also don't discount the New York Knicks, man. If they hadn't got hurt, we would have been playing them in the finals, and that would have been a brutal
Hmm.
match. I mean, because
The
they
Eastern
matched up
Conference
well with
Finals.
us. Yeah, we played them in the Eastern
Yeah,
Conference Finals, and that would have been a tough series. But luckily,
yeah,
that everybody got hurt, and they couldn't even beat the Pacers. So
yeah.
but
And when you play a team like the Celtics, who's just a bunch of superstars, shot makers, especially 3-point shot makers, you got to have a team. The way the Knicks are built, it's like what you want. You would ideally like to have
yeah,
superstars to match up with them, but first and foremost, you need guys that are going to be tenacious and just a bunch of dogs out there to really punch
yeah,
those teams in the mouth. That's what Miami did to the Celtics last year, and New York's probably the closest thing built to that. Obviously they weren't healthy at the end, so they couldn't quite get over the hump. But if they can get healthy late going into next year, that'd be a problem. And I'd argue the Sixers, depending on how they rebuild coming into next year, they got some money. I mean,
a
it's
lot of money.
unlikely, but yeah, it's unlikely. But they're talking LeBron. I think he'll stay. Another
Yeah,
option they brought up, we saw Embiid kind of wink at Paul George the other day on the broadcast.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I think Paul George is like, I could definitely see him going there, but I think Paul George has been the most overrated player over the last 5 or 6 years. Everywhere he goes, like he don't get past the second round, and what's the common denominator? In all these situations, you have to wonder, is that guy the real deal? I mean, I believe he was before he got hurt in Indiana. I believe he was going to be that guy, but I think his career kind of changed, and you kind of see what players are made of when they go through something like that. So I don't know. I think Philly will be interesting to see what they do in this offseason. What about you, Pops? Do you see anybody else?
Um,
Maybe Milwaukee?
you always can't discount Milwaukee when you got a superstar like Giannis,
Yeah.
and now Doc will have him for a whole year. But I'm not that sold on Doc as a coach anymore either. He hasn't been able to do anything
Mhm.
with Simmons and Embiid. Now, I don't know if
Yeah.
he had Butler. I don't think he had Butler when he still there when he came in.
No.
But he had everybody
No.
else. He had it made there, and
His Clipper run was
he couldn't
bad
do it.
too.
What's that? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
His Clipper
Yeah.
run.
Clippers run real close, every time, and just can never close out games. I think he's like the worst record ever for a coach, like when it comes to a closeout game. I
Yeah,
think he
that's
has
what
that
it
record.
is. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. And it sucks to see because I mean, he's a Celtic. He'll always be a Celtic great because he won a championship, but he has not had much success since he left Boston, wherever he's went. He's had a lot of talent too.
yeah,
So who knows? And Milwaukee obviously can't discount them with Giannis because that one year he carried them all the way to that finals. But
Mm-hmm.
I know Phoenix, maybe if they can figure out a way to play with KD and not just send him in the corner, you
Oh
know, one
man.
of one of the biggest superstars in the league, and you got him just sitting out there on the 3-point line. What are we doing?
yeah,
Earn balls. What do you think of them?
Again, it's so hard to really say who's coming out of the West because for
Mm,
me, I just see superstars everywhere. I mean, who knows? I mean, there's a generational talent on the Spurs. Who knows what he does,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Who
something
knows what
like
they
that,
get to add around him?
right? Like there's just
Mhm.
there's the good thing is that in this modern age of basketball, we like to really point towards the superstars. And man, there's a lot of talent
Mhm.
in today's league that kind of makes us say, oh, well, if these guys do a good job building around this team with this star, they have a chance.
yeah,
And I think that's the best part of it is there's a lot of superstars anywhere. I mean, we didn't even mention Indiana and look at what they discovered they had over there. I don't think they
yeah,
knew they had those kind of players over there until this playoff run either. They're going to be excited to
Yeah.
get back out there.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And
I think
th-
to
there
win a
was rumors
championship, you got
about
to
the
have.
GM.
Go ahead, son.
There was rumors around the GMs, real quick, pops. They were all saying that the Celtics better get theirs while they can,
Hmm.
because once Wembanyama, starts getting better and better, he's already so good as a rookie. But once they get more pieces around him and once he gets better, it's going to be his league for the taking. It's like LeBron status, but possibly even better, just because
Right.
of like he has all the tools and already, and he's so big, like he's unguardable, and it makes you wonder, like, okay, how much do you even need around that guy for him to start getting to that level? Because he's going to be that good, and it's going to be really interesting to see. Maybe a finals in the future of Spurs Celtics, maybe they don't have as much superstars, but they got the best one. You know what I mean, by far, and that can change
Yeah.
everything. Go ahead, pops.
Yeah, in order to win a championship, you got to be lucky and you got to be healthy. You need both of those. Talent will get you so far, but if you don't have some luck, and especially if you're not healthy, which the Clippers have never been, every time they get in the playoffs, they're hurt. Even when who's that guard that used to play for him? Chris Paul. He was always hurt in the
Mhm.
Hmm.
playoffs, and so even though they had
Always.
really good teams back then, health. You know, you got to have health.
Hmm.
We were lucky that way, except for Porzingis, but we had the players to make up for him. Luckily,
Yeah, and man, so we're obviously wrapping up this NBA season, and we're talking way too early predictions. Um, I just can't help but get excited about some football season.
yeah,
It's approaching real quick,
Mhm.
A
yeah,
lot
it
of
is.
exciting things going on around there. Earn balls, you got your eyes on any team coming up this year?
What team was it, man? Because I'm a fan of wrestling, like Olympic wrestling.
Hmm.
And there's a
Hmm.
heavyweight. I don't know if you guys caught it on the Bills, actually. His name's Gable Stevenson, a
Oh
heavyweight
yeah,
Really?
Olympic gold medalist. And to anybody that follows wrestling, dude, this guy is cream of the crop talent in his own field. So I mean, I'm so excited to see what he can do out there because when I
Mm-hmm.
tell you this guy's a athlete, man, I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'm cheering for the Bills, man. I really want to see that guy. I want him to do good. What a story that'd be, right? From
yeah,
Olympic wrestler to
Oh yeah.
potentially, I think he can be a star. I mean, he's athletically gifted. Let's just
yeah.
put a
Hmm.
helmet on him, see what he can do. I thought
Didn't he
that
Yeah,
was
play?
awesome.
I'm out
Didn't
there.
he play rugby too?
I don't know about
I
that.
thought he was
I
a
don't
rugby
know.
player too.
I just know that I was following him when he was at
Yeah,
Minnesota wrestling, I believe it
yeah,
was.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see
I've
that. I
read
mean,
about him. Yeah. In fact,
yeah,
it's
and
kind of
the
funny.
Bills.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
sir.
pops. Go.
In fact, before we won this finals, we were being compared to the Bills, Buffalo Bills. We
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
Yeah,
we couldn't get over the hump. We were
the Bills curse.
compared to Dallas.
I'd say the Niners were the best comparison because the
Yeah,
Niners have gone to the Super Bowl, been so close every single year, and they're
Hmm.
yep,
always one of the best all year. So,
Hey, let me tell
but
you this real quick though. I was talking to Hondo earlier, and
sure.
I told him because after I look, me personally, he likes to think I'm a big Boston hater. I don't hate Boston. I have nothing against. One thing that stood out to me though, I think you guys are the most hated team in the league. I really do. I don't think the majority of people
Hmm.
were not happy you guys took home that
Yeah.
18th
uh,
banner. I saw the discourse everywhere. I mean,
Oh,
oh
I
you guys
yeah.
are
know.
not liked very well.
I
Not
don't
very
know why, but
good.
my niece sent me a map, picture of a map, and had all the blue that wanted the Mavericks to win, and the green, and the only green she showed on there was New England area,
Uh-huh.
the New England states. Everybody else wanted the Mavs to win.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I told her there'd be a lot of sad people after this series. Then,
yeah. And I saw it too, man. Social media, like just memes left and right. I mean, people are coming at Tatum. Like I was seeing all memes today
Oh,
about how
yeah.
he's corny, he's trying
Uh-huh.
too hard to create an NBA Finals moment, and I'm like, bro, leave the guy alone. But at the same time, it's like that's gonna happen no matter what. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's better to be a champion and hear all that. So like you don't have to say nothing. You know what I mean? Then in years past, like Jalen Brown, the poor guy had to deal with the whole offseason of just constant memes, people saying he can't dribble with his left hand,
Mhm.
and he had nothing to say about it because we lost. And then to to have this finals win now, you kind of can like just sit back and enjoy the memes. You know what I mean? Like who cares if you're a champion? Who cares, right?
Right.
But you definitely see a lot of it. No one's happy about the Celtics taking this one home.
No, and it's funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then it's kind of good that Tatum didn't win Finals MVP because now he's going to come up back with the chip on his shoulder like Brown had.
Hmm.
He mentioned all the great players that when they won their first title, they didn't win MVP. Like Bird, he didn't win MVP his first title. Steph didn't win
Hmm.
MVP his first title. LeBron
His first like
didn't
two or
either.
three.
Yeah,
Yeah, Steph's first two or three, he didn't get it. I remember Iguodala got
yeah.
the first one
Iguodala got the first one. He got the last
when
one
Max.
against us. Yeah,
Yeah, of course he did too. That's what I
but
was.
KD got
The,
the other ones.
yeah, when we played them a few years ago, I was like, the good thing is that Steph, however great he's been in the playoffs, his finals career, he never shot great percentages. He never had those Curry-like games in the
Yeah,
finals.
that
And I just
changed.
had this weird feeling. I'm like, why do I feel like he's gonna all of a sudden do it against the
Oh
Celtics?
man, yeah, he went
And he
berserk.
did, man.
Yeah.
That was that was legacy series right there for him. That like that cemented him and made everyone realize how great that guy truly is. Because
Oh
in my
yeah.
opinion, I still think that the Celtics had the better team, but the Warriors, you see how in the finals how important experience is, and I think the Mavs got to see it firsthand this year too. Like with not they had a lot of talent, Kyrie, Luca, and even though Kyrie's got experience, Luca didn't quite. He wasn't the same playmaker that he had been in the past. You know what I mean? And I think in that first game, when he scored all those points, he scored like 30 a game. But when they held him to one assist in game one, I realized like that's
Yeah,
exactly what they're trying to do. They're like, you can get all you want, Luca, as long as you're not getting those role players involved, PJ Washington, Gafford, Lively, as long
yeah,
as those guys aren't taking over and it starts a fire, you know what I mean? Like you don't you leave it to Luca, who cares? Don't let the role players get going. And
yeah.
I think he might have found that out a little too late, and he just looked exhausted by the end, kind of how the Celtics did a few years ago.
Now they're making memes about him, fat,
Hmm.
overweight. When's he gonna get in shape? He's always one with that weight. But maybe they got a
Yeah.
point though. If he ever does lose weight and gets in good shape, watch out, man. Watch out.
Well,
And another
that's the
another
that's the
thing. Go ahead.
the funny thing is about Luca is he always comes into the season slim down, and it's all over social media like, oh, Luca, skinny Luca, here we go. Like he looks scary, and he always looks in such good shape. But as the season goes on, he just progressively puts that weight back on.
Yeah,
And then you see the pictures in the off season, of course, of him hitting his hookah on a yacht, call him Hookah Luca. But
yeah,
but yeah, like he even like after the bubble, going into the bubble, he was in great shape again. And he like you look at his highlights, he looks like a completely different person the way he got up and down the court. But yeah, if he can consistently stay in good shape, like who knows like where this guy will be. And we all know Luca is going to be just fine. He's still going to be one of the greatest. He's going to be in contention for the finals 4 years to come. But will he take that next step by losing weight? We know he needs to quit crying to the refs for sure, though.
Oh yeah, man. He just needs to mature. One thing I'd like to
yeah.
bring
Yeah.
up is, man, what did you guys do to Kyrie, man? Maybe he did it to himself. Maybe he did curse
Oh,
himself
he
by
did it to
stepping on
himself.
Lucky's head. But
He
oh my
did, bro.
gosh, man, I've never seen just a superstar just play so poorly in
Disappear.
one certain
Yeah.
arena consistently. Time
Yeah,
after
Yeah.
time. I mean, he's scared to play in Dallas or in Boston. I mean, it's
Dude.
clear as day.
yeah.
Yeah.
He left
Like,
Boston. He didn't want to play with Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. That's how
yeah.
stupid he
And you could
was.
tell he's matured a lot, though. And like, it's cool to see the narrative change on him, from being like this crazy guy, and like the media totally like
Yeah,
making him look like a villain. And to see his emotional maturity, like that's what has worried me going into this series. I thought, man, can these fans even get to him now? Because the years past, they did get to him, and it makes you wonder, like, is he mature enough now? He definitely seems like it, and I think it was just such a toxic environment that, like, he was just in his own head. You know what I mean? And like, as far as he had come, you could tell the crowd and just the things that they'd say, the constant booing, the constant chants, Kyrie sucks. Like it just got to him, and he was not the same player when playing in Boston.
no. And I want to point out that who the Celtics were most happy got a ring? Horford, Al
Big
Horford.
Al.
He
Hmm.
had the
Yeah.
second most
Yeah.
games played in the playoffs without ever getting a ring. 18
Hmm.
years in
Hmm.
the league, and he finally got a ring. That's what everybody's most happy about, was getting him a ring
Yeah.
before he retires.
With Boston too. That's the
Yeah,
ultimate cherry on the top because man, I this was barely when I started getting in the NBA, but when he was playing over with Thunder, the Thunder. Do you guys remember that? He
Yeah.
left Boston, played with the
Hmm.
Thunder for a little bit,
Yeah.
and he was hooping over there. And again, I talked
Yeah.
to Honda. I was like, "Man, what happened? Like, how did you guys like let him go, or what was the dealio or whatever?" But I'm
Hmm.
glad he returned. To me, he's just a Boston guy, almost similar
He
to what
fits in.
Marcus Smart was for you guys. I think that's like a
Hmm.
spiritual leader in your locker room, and you need those kind of guys there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
When
I think,
Kyrie left, he left. It maybe he might have left before Kyrie left because they don't really get along, as I understand. And so he went. The Celtics were going to give him a 2-year contract, decent
Hmm.
money, about 25. And then Philadelphia swoops in and gives him like a 4-year, $30 million contract. And so he jumped to them. And then it didn't work
yeah,
out in Philadelphia. Him and Embiid didn't match. And so they trade him to Oklahoma City.
Thunder.
And the
He's in.
And
Thunder,
He's Embiid's weakness.
yeah.
yeah, and that's what's so funny because Philly fans hate Horford.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
because
Oh, it's warranted.
he was,
Uh-huh.
yeah, he was bad over there, and they were paying him a lot. And then he comes back to Boston, and he has his career games against Philly again. Back to shutting down Embiid, and they can't stand Horford. Like, he's the villain, and he still gets the last laugh every time because they're back to beating him. And I just think, and I want to take a second to talk about how poetic sports can be. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a movie, the way these storylines can go sometimes, because it's like, it really, I get it, some franchises go longer than 16 years to win a championship, or they never get one, so it can be a longer wait. But these 16 years, it's been so poetic the way things have happened. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
the big
yeah.
three era, they only got one ring, injuries happen. They end up trading those guys to get their future, literally back to back drafts. They draft Tatum and Brown at number 3, and both drafts, the Lakers and Sixers had a chance to draft them, and they didn't.
Hmm.
And so the Celtics get those guys. And then for Tatum's rookie year, they get Kyrie, they get Gordon Hayward, and it's like super team. Everyone's talking super team. And then game 1, Hayward has that nasty injury out for season. And then Kyrie's in there. They get on a big run. They're like 18-2. He gets hurt late in the year, so they have all the young guys in Horford, and they still go to a game 7 against Cleveland, against LeBron, but they lose because they're so young. And then, the years go, Kyrie and Hayward come back, super team again, but they don't play well together. They don't make it past the second round. They only get one win in the second round. Bucks kill them. And so, those years go by. And after Kyrie decides to leave, Horford thought the Celtics would be rebuilding. And so he leaves for the Sixers. And the Celtics happen to get Kemba, who is a fan favorite from UConn, was one of the best point guards in the league. And all of a sudden, late in year 1, his knee goes out. And so in the bubble, wasn't the same player. They lose in 6 to Miami to go to the finals. And then you go to the next year, like adding the pieces slowly, and then they lose to the Warriors in the finals, and they lose to Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals. And like, it's a long time coming, and the way these stories play out, to see Horford finally get one and see him reminisce on first meeting Danny Ainge, and he's like, sure, like you can win a championship anywhere, but there's nothing like winning a championship in Boston. And to see him retell that story and finally get there is just really cool. Like, some of those guys did deserve it. As much as hated as they are, some of those guys really, you can't help but root for them. Guys like Derek White, you know what I mean? Chipping his tooth,
Hmm.
diving for the ball. Said he would have lost them all if it meant getting a championship. You just love things like that. And
And
through the really rough years in the mid 2010s, like you can't forget guys like Jay Crowder, Jonas Jerebko, Marcus Smart, like they were there for the rough years. Kelly Olynyk, and to get to where it is now, it's like they wouldn't won that without those guys like being a part of that long process. Brad Stevens. But
yeah, another
just me
crazy
nerding out.
thing was that they won it 16 years to the day when the 2008 team won it on
Hmm.
6/17, and then 6/17 is the area code for Boston. Boston's area code is 6/17, so that's pretty
Hmm.
crazy too. They both
And
won it 16
6/17.
years apart.
Yep. And 6/17/24 is also the numbers of 3 Celtics legends who passed away in the last few years.
Oh,
And
that's
Yeah,
we just
right.
had Bob Cousy. Yeah, Bob Cousy a few weekends ago just said, like, I'm tired. I can't move. I know I'm going to die soon. He's like, but before I go, I just want to see one more Celtics championship. And they got it for him. That was real cool.
Yeah, the 617. It was Havlicek and Russell passed away. Two of the biggest stars in Celtics history. Russell got 11 championships, and Havlicek got like 9. So you
Yeah, back
figure,
back in the Flintstones era.
yeah. So that's when I was watching them too. Actually watched 13 of their 18 championships. I became a fan when I was like 7 years old. I was watching Russell and them guys. And my dad was a Lakers fan. Oh,
Oh,
he
that's
hated it. So, oh
awesome.
well.
Yeah, yeah, and what a storied franchise. I mean, ESPN still tried to post that Lakers and Celtics both got championships this year. They try to
Yeah.
talk about the in-season tournament, which is like,
Oh
come on,
yeah.
we're really gonna try and slide that in there. You know what I mean? But officially got one more championship than the Lakers. And next year, I mean, who knows what can happen? Obviously, health. You need to see how serious Porzingis' injury is. But I have a feeling things are going to get a lot more interesting next year because I don't think there's a chance that there's going to be so much injuries this year in the playoffs. Because I mean, there wasn't just in the East. I mean, the West had a lot of injuries too. People, were worn out and beat up, and you'd like to see a postseason next year where all the superstars are healthy and you get high level basketball. And I have a feeling that's what we're
Yep.
going to get next year. I think next year is going to be fireworks.
Let's hope so.
But, but yeah, I mean that concludes our NBA season. I mean we'll close off this episode there. I feel like that's a good place to close the book on this year. It was a fun year of NBA, that's for sure. We always love the gossip columns of the NBA. But in the next few weeks, we'll talk a little baseball. Obviously, football, they're the king of sports, so there's constant headlines in there. They make sure to stay in the news. So we'll definitely be keeping up with the football stuff as well as the basketball offseason news. But
NBA
I mean, with
draft.
that being,
NBA
yep,
draft coming
NBA
up
draft
next
coming up.
week.
Yep. But with that all being said, that concludes the season. And I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. Always love talking with you guys.
No
Thank you.
problem.
So,
Happy to be here.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'll see y'all soon. All right.